Hello and welcome back everyone, I am the Otaku, and you guys have been asking for it, so today we are taking a look at the pulse cannon, also recognized as the The pulse cannon is an incredibly powerful long-range rifle, which utilizes the frame of a DT-12 21A laser rifle, and is available to all Star Wars Battlefront players in the form of a star card. Now, I'm sure most of you have already used this at some point, and to be honest, there isn't a whole lot for me to teach you in terms of statistics or special strategies. However, with that being said, the pulse cannon has gone through some changes and continues to be plagued by quirky behavioral issues, so it's worth discussing the ins and outs on how to use it properly, when and where it's going to be most effective, and how it can be beneficial to your loadout. So let's go ahead and get started. First, the basics. The pulse cannon is activated by pressing whatever key is assigned to that star card slot that you have the pulse cannon equipped to. You can switch it in and out from the pulse cannon back to your regular weapon by simply hitting that same button again. You should consider assigning the pulse cannon to that same slot every time you go to use it. That way in the future, you will always have that key memorized and not make silly mistakes. Also, console players try switching it from around the different slots to find out what's more comfortable for you. Then, when equipped, the pulse cannon is just like any other weapon. You can pull it out and still feel free to use Scan Pulse, Personal Shield, Jetpack, and other star cards. Just don't expect the Explosive Shot or the power-up cards to activate, as they are simply not compatible with this weapon. To use the pulse cannon, simply aim, hold down fire, and the weapon will charge. When you are ready, release the fire button at any time to shoot the projectile. Just make sure that before you go to fire, that your center reticle has changed colors to red, indicating that your shot is in fact lined up properly and going to hit the enemy. It's important for you to know that only a full charge shot will be a one-shot kill. Anything else will simply get them low on health. Also, the pulse cannon only holds its charge for a limited period of time, after which it will automatically fire. You can usually tell when this is going to happen based on the sound that the weapon is making. If at any point you wish to cancel your pulse cannon shot to avoid wasting it, simply change weapons, hit melee or anything like that, and it will cancel the shot without firing. Now, like I said before, there are some issues surrounding the pulse cannon, in particular when it comes to its accuracy. First, the pulse cannon is just not accurate when shooting from the hip. In other words, it's not accurate when you are not aiming down the sights. Yes, at very close point blank, you might get lucky and hit someone, but even then I've had it completely miss when the tip of the barrel was shoved in somebody's face. Now, this might not seem like such a big deal, you can simply aim the weapon, right? No, it is a problem because there is a long-standing issue where if you release your aim too quickly when shooting the pulse cannon, in other words, you release your aim too quickly right after the shot is fired, it doesn't register that you were aiming down sight, and it will shoot as if you are using hip fire, obviously missing the target, but every once in a long while inadvertently killing some random dude that was walking by and making for a good WTF moment. So in other words, just don't release your aim too quickly. Next, the pulse cannon needs to be pre-charged before shooting, otherwise you don't have enough charge built up and enough damage for a one-shot kill. This used to not be such a big deal, as you could counter that by pre-charging while coming out of cover, going around a corner, etc. However, with recent changes, the rate at which you move while aiming the pulse cannon has been severely reduced, making it super hard to move around while you're pre-charging. At the same time, they also made it so any shooting while moving is going to result in the pulse cannon having accuracy that is similar to when you hip fire. And just so you know, moving and then standing still right before you shoot doesn't always work either. From my understanding, the problem here is that the accuracy penalty takes time to cool down. So be sure to wait at least 1 or 2 seconds after moving before attempting to fire, or you may still notice the poor accuracy. Then one last thing that you do need to keep in mind while shooting is that when in third-person perspective, it can be very easy to misjudge just how much you are still behind cover and if your path is clear to shoot or not, as I mentioned in my first-person versus third-person perspective video. So while aiming down sight, your path may look clear, but it's not, and you end up shooting the edge of a wall or some sort of object. To avoid this, be sure to come out of cover more than you think is necessary, or switch into first-person view before shooting, as it doesn't have this problem and it avoids the situation altogether. So now that you know how to use it and the necessary steps for you to not fail when using it, let's talk about when and where it's going to be most effective and how it can benefit your loadout. So the pulse cannon is obviously best suited for long distance shooting. It also does a large amount of damage to heroes and moderate damage to StarCraft. How much the pulse cannon is going to benefit you is going to depend on your loadout, your playstyle, your accuracy, as well as the game mode, the map, and the faction that you're playing on. So with that in mind, I've come to the conclusion that you can pretty much use the pulse cannon on any map or game mode successfully because they all facilitate multiple distance encounters at some part of the map, which allows you to use the pulse cannon. What matters most here is that you have a balanced loadout and something that is going to give you the most overall benefit in your current game mode. Let's take a look at some examples. In a larger game mode like Walker Assault, the pulse cannon is great for taking out enemies at long distance or possibly shooting down aircraft, and it also does a bit of damage to the AT-AT. It will even allow you to use a close quarters combat oriented weapon like the SE-14C or DH-17 to fight on objectives more effectively. Yet you need to consider, is the pulse cannon actually worth taking over something like an ion-based weapon, which is going to help you counter the crazy amount of vehicles and turrets much better than the pulse cannon would. Then in smaller game modes like Blast, the same sort of thing applies. You're running with a close quarters combat weapon, you need something that will shoot at those longer ranges of the map, the pulse cannon is going to have your back. However, other options like the cycler rifle that can shoot at range, but have more mobility and a one-shot kill at close, and also go through shields might be better for your current situation, or in these fast-paced, smaller game modes. So while it may be usable anywhere, it's not always going to be the best option, and you're going to have to make the decision on will it balance your loadout according to your playstyle. So for me, generally there are two game modes that I see the pulse cannon getting the most used and being an overall great choice. The first is Turning Point. Turning Point is much more infantry focused with less vehicles, making other anti-vehicle options less appealing over the pulse cannon. Also, the spawn points, the flow of battle, and objectives all allow for a lot of straightforward heads-up fights at long distances, which makes that pulse cannon a great asset to have over anything else. The second game mode is Heroes vs Villains. Currently, a fully charged pulse cannon to the face will absolutely destroy most heroes. If you're able to land a clean hit and then follow it up with some explosive shot, you can pretty much 1v1 most heroes as an infantry soldier. I really don't see any other option as being more beneficial than this, and unless there are some nerfs or changes to explosive shot and pulse cannon combo, it will continue to be my #1 hero killing loadout. Now, like I said before, there isn't really a whole lot of strategy. It works just like any other sniper rifle in the game. You shoot a target, you can get the kill. If you miss, you don't. If the enemy is moving, you should lead your shot slightly to make sure it connects. And that's pretty much all there is to it. A lot of the difficulty with using the pulse cannon isn't with its aiming, it's with the finicky behavior. The rest is just pretty easy if you have good aim. But there still is one special technique that I do use in open areas. Essentially, to offset the risk of pre-charging the pulse cannon, while also overcoming light of sight problems that you might often encounter, if you have pro skills, then you can try this special shot, the MLG over 9000 jump cannon. However, I'm not joking when I say this, it's not that easy to do, and it comes with some risks, like looking stupid when you miss, dying because you missed, accidental collisions with StarCraft, falling off ledges, jetpacking into enemies, jetpacking out of bounds, and severe addiction to adrenaline. The idea is that once you have an enemy in sight or have a good idea of where enemies might be, preemptively place your crosshairs in a position where you think it will line up with them after you have jetpacked into the air. Then start charging the pulse cannon, jetpack towards the enemy's direction, and then once you spot the enemy, immediately aim down sight, wait for the shot to line up, and then fire. I know it's a lot to try and consider and coordinate at once, but I have faith in you. A little bit of practice and you'll get it down and join the MLG Jump Cannon Club. Then if you can get a 360 in, you become over 9,000. That is all for today. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, or even donate. All these actions support the channel and me love you long time. I will see you guys next time, but until then, as always, may the Otaku be with you.